This will be a day long remembered. Now I am the master.
Welcome to another episode of Legends and Theories. While cleaning up a room at home, I actually found this book called Star Wars Heart to Head by Pablo Hidalgo, which was a book I got when I was a kid around 2010, which was the book's release year. I don't know exactly what year, but I know I probably got it around that time. This book is a versus book, which describes some of the basic info on the characters or vehicles from Star Wars, and which one would win in a fight. While reading the results for the first time in over half a decade, I was shocked to see what some of these results were of these fights, and I think you'd be too. I'm not going to show the exact pages for multiple reasons. One is I don't want to get in any trouble for showing the pages of the book, and the pages are very bent out of shape and broken since they were laying in a pile in the back room of my house. I will leave a link to the Wikipedia page in the description, which includes everything on the last page, which describes who would win in each fight. I'll be reading off this Wikipedia page so you do not hear me mess around with the book in the background. This video is made all in good fun, but some of these results do worry me, since Pablo Hidalgo is in charge of everything canon now at Lucasfilm, and I think that some of these decisions do not make any sense. I may agree with about half of these decisions that he's made, but most of them were on more minor characters or vehicles. And I think that he does some very major mistakes with very major characters, which we'll notice right at the beginning from the first one. This one is Darth Vader versus Yoda, where Hidalgo says that he thinks that Vader would win, and his explanation is that Vader proves too powerful for the Jedi Master, who awaits a new hope to bring balance to the Force. But when you looked at the book, it showed a picture of Yoda from Episode 3 with his lightsaber, which is probably about the time in the movies where some of us height of his power. That Yoda was able to at least keep up with Darth Sidious, even though he wasn't able to defeat him, and was able to successfully fight Count Dooku. Vader is, of course, the one from the original trilogy, and not Anakin Skywalker's full potential as a Sith Lord. This version of Vader is slow and will take time to move because of the bad cybernetics that Palpatine gave him. Yoda, being a much more agile and athletic fighter, will easily be able to take down Vader, and that is one of the things I find ridiculous. Another one is coming up very soon, but before that one, I'm going to go over one that I actually do agree with, since I'm doing it in the order of the book, which is Obi-Wan Kenobi versus Boba Fett, where it says that Obi-Wan will win. I do think that there was a good chance of Obi-Wan winning, and it's more likely for him to win than not win. Obi-Wan has taken on his father, Jango, and has fought many Mandalorians in his time, and has defeated multiple Sith Lords, so I think that Obi-Wan Kenobi will be able to defeat Boba Fett. Plus, Boba Fett was defeated by Han Solo when he accidentally bumped into him, so, I think that's pretty obvious for Obi-Wan to win. There's one other one that I was talking about before that really makes me think he doesn't know that much. It is Anakin Skywalker from Episode 3 versus Luke Skywalker in Episode 6, where it says that Luke would win, and it says that Anakin's lack of control in the heat of battle will be his undoing. But I don't think that's true. This Anakin Skywalker, at the height of his time as a Jedi, had over a decade of Jedi training, where Luke had a few years of on-off training with Jedi Masters like Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda, and was mainly self-taught. This Luke was only really able to keep up with Vader due to Vader's poor cybernetics, and to the fact that he went into the dark side. Anakin at this point will be very accustomed to tapping into the dark side occasionally in his fights, and even is at his full potential right now, since they said that Vader was about 80% of Palpatine's potential when he was fallen to Lava River, which means that he will not be holding back in terms of the body, and he will not be holding back since he does not know that Luke is his son, and is that known from the future, since this will be a more generic fight, and seems to be them just pulled from their own timelines. The reason that the Vader round and the Anakin rounds worry me is since, said by George Lucas, Star Wars' story of Anakin Skywalker, and Pablo Hidalgo is greatly underestimating Vader's power level. He thinks that Darth Vader could defeat Yoda, but does not think that Anakin could defeat Luke, when both of those should be in reverse. Vader should stand almost no chance against Yoda, and Anakin should be able to easily destroy Luke. But now let's go on to the other ones, which I feel like some of them are unreasonable, but not as crazy as these two examples I've shown. I actually do agree with the results of the next two, since it's very likely they would win. In a scenario of General Grievous versus Emperor Palpatine, it is very clear that Palpatine would easily destroy Grievous. There is almost a 0% chance of Grievous winning this fight, unless something really bad happens with Palpatine, like he somehow suffers a heart attack randomly, or something like that, but I do not see any world where Grievous stands a good chance of defeating Palpatine. Then in Padme Amidala versus Sam Wessel, I feel like Sam Wessel would be more likely to win since she is a trained assassin, and Padme is just a senator who does like to use peaceful options more often than not. Although she has had some experience in fighting, I don't think that Padme is going to be able to defeat Sam Wessel in a one-on-one fight. Even though Obi-Wan and Anakin were able to easily defeat her, but that's because they had the power of the Force with them. It's been mainly shown that Padme has not been very good at going up against bounty hunters without help from Jedi. The next one is the Wookiee Nasp versus the Speeder Bike, where they say the Speeder Bike would win, but I think the Nasp would win since it's a flying vehicle, and the Speeder Bike has been shown to be very unreliable and easy to crash. The Nasp is able to fly around the forests of Kashyyyk easily, but the Speeder Bike, which to clarify is the Imperial one, has been shown to easily crash during the forests of Endor, which are a lot less deadly than the forests of Kashyyyk, which have dozens of dangerous animals at the surface, and the worst you have to worry about in Endor from what we've seen is a bunch of Ewoks. I think the results of this one's pretty easy, of Jabba's Rancor versus the Nextu from Attack of the Clones. I think Jabba's Rancor would easily defeat it, because its size will be able to make it easily hit it and kill it, or just grab it and eat it. I do not think the Nextu stands a chance in this fight. The next one I think actually could be considered either way, but I would say that I don't agree with the majority of times with the option they picked. This one is a clone turbo tank, better known as the Juggernaut, versus the AT-AT Walker. They say the AT-AT Walker would win because its heavy armor would withstand the rounds of the turbo tank and be able to shoot out the wheels. But if a clone turbo tank attacks from any other angle besides the front, it could easily just tank into the AT-AT and knock it over, or be able to shoot towards the neck joints, which are weak. I think there is a chance for the AT-AT to win, but that would be for a head-on attack by the clone turbo tank with the Juggernaut, and I don't think that the clones inside of it would do that. This one I don't agree with, but I can see where they're coming from at the time, which is Darth Maul versus Kid Fisto. They said Kid Fisto would win, but today I don't agree with that, since we've seen more from Darth Maul. But at the time, in 2010, Darth Maul was still dead, and it only really appeared in The Phantom Menace and other books and comics before that, so I could see why they could justify Kid Fisto beating him, since Kid Fisto successfully defended against General Grievous and more. Although I don't want to on this one, it's a battle between Jango Fett and Han Solo. I have to admit that they were right, that Jango Fett probably will beat Han Solo, unless Han Solo gets lucky again and is able to damage the jetpack in the same way he did Boba Fett and he gets swallowed by another Sarlacc or something like that. But I feel like it's likely that Jango Fett would win in this fight. which means this part was correct. This one I don't see any chance of it happening this way. It's the TIE Interceptor versus the Jedi Starfighter, the ones from Episode 2. Even though the Jedi Starfighter is less armed and probably less maneuverable than the TIE Interceptor, it's going to be more useful since there's going to be a force-sensitive guarantee behind the controls, and they will be able to maneuver the ship to be able to take on the TIE Interceptor and destroy it. The only way I could see this going in the way of the TIE Interceptor is if it's like a youngling or a Padawan piloting the Jedi Starfighter in the battle, but I think it's likely for the Jedi Starfighter to win. This one is a funny one, and I do agree with it since, well, for obvious reasons. This is the Ewok versus the Jawa, where the Ewok wins. Of course it's going to win, since the Jawa is only going to be using electrical-based attacks, and the worst that's going to happen is the Ewok's going to sit on fire from some electricity stuff, and the Ewok will be using either a spear, bow and arrow, rocks, or something to take out the Jawa. At least the book agreed with me here, because I feel like if that was the other way around, that would have been completely ridiculous. This next one's a pretty easy win also. It's a Star Destroyer versus the Trade Federation Battleship, as they call it, which would probably be better known as the Lucrehulk. I mean, if Anakin Skywalker as a kid could destroy this in a single starfighter, I'm pretty sure a Star Destroyer could do it easily. Remember, a 9-year-old destroyed one of these. That's another one I'm glad they agreed on, because I don't think the Lucrehulk stood any chance against the Star Destroyer. Unless they somehow used the hangar bay area as a projectile to crash through the Star Destroyer, destroying it. But I don't know how they would work, and it would probably be going into hold-em maneuver methods. This one is extremely obvious. I think we all know how it's going to turn out. The Clone Trooper versus the Stormtrooper. And the winner clearly is the Stormtrooper. I'm sorry, I gotta do that. Okay, that's the Clone Trooper. Clone Trooper is a clearly obvious choice. They've trained for their entire lives, and are way better skilled, and can actually hit stuff. I mean, we've been shown multiple times how Stormtroopers aiming sucks, and how they almost never succeed. But the clones were almost always able to succeed, and it was said that they were phased out. And of course, every clone that we've seen in the Imperial times thinks that they're better than the Stormtroopers, which isn't pride, it's a true fact. The next fight I feel like is a pretty easy win. It is the Reek versus the Bantha. The Reek is basically the rhino creature in Episode 2, and a Bantha is what a Tuscan Raider rides. I feel like we pretty much know who's going to win. The giant rhino, the Reek. And the book agrees. There's no possible way for the Bantha to be winning unless it's the one from The Mandalorian, Season 2, Episode 1. But I'm not going to say any more, so I don't spoil anything from that episode. This one is one I honestly feel like could go either way, depending on how good the day they're having and how well the ship's working at the time. It's the Millennium Falcon versus the Stealth Infiltrator, which is Darth Maul's ship. They say the Millennium Falcon would win, and I feel like that's probably true, but I think there's a good chance that Darth Maul could win. Honestly, this is one of the ones I feel like is a really close to a 50-50 fight, and could go either way for them. We all agree that Millennium Falcon may have a slight advantage in winning, since that ship seems like it could survive anything. The next one is IG-88 versus R2-D2, and this time I feel like IG-88 is going to win. Even though R2-D2 will do everything he can to stop him, I feel like IG-88 would win, and the book agrees with me. Here's one where I feel like they did it really wrong. It's the Naboo Starfighter versus the TIE Fighter. They said the TIE Fighter would win, but I don't think that's likely to happen. They say it's a very close contest, but the Heartsteel of the Empire cuts through the decorative finish of the Naboo Starfighter, but I don't agree. The TIE Fighter has basically no shields, and I'm pretty sure the Naboo Starfighter does, but I don't really feel like checking on that. Also, the Naboo Starfighter has been used to destroy TIE Fighters, shown in the Star Wars Shattered Empire comics and Battlefront 2 campaign, which ties into that Shattered Empire comic. I don't know if you've actually seen it, but I know that the Starfighters were up there, and I've never paid enough attention while playing that mission to notice if they were on there. There's one that could go two very different ways, depending on if the theory is true. This one is Jabba the Hutt versus Jar Jar Binks. If Jar Jar is just the character we think he is, and is just a normal Gungan, I agree that Jabba's probably just going to crush him, like they say in the book. But if he's Jar Jar, Dark Lord of the Sith, then Jabba is standing no chance and will die a painful death. This one is an X-Wing versus General Grievous Starfighter, which I actually really disagree with their option. They say the X-Wing would win, but since it just says X-Wing and not something like Luke Skywalker's X-Wing, I do not agree with this. General Grievous would be able to beat it, since the X-Wing is just basically a more advanced version of the ARC 170 Starfighter with less crew, and I think that General Grievous would be able to beat it. It says that the X-Wing would be able to just beat down the armor on a Grievous ship until it finally breaks, but I don't agree. I feel like, again, for the reasons said before, Grievous would win. I don't know how the option to this one was came up with. This one is Alkali, the creature from episode 2, the last one we haven't gone over with from the arena scene, versus Boga, which is the lizard thing Obi-Wan rides in Revenge of the Sith. We haven't seen the Boga be very useful besides for climbing, and if this is in an open battlefield with no walls or anything, I do not see it winning. But also, the Acolyte seems to be a killing machine, and the Boga is just like a Spider-Man fused with a horse, without spider sense or anything. It just could climb walls really well. This is one I really don't understand why they said that Boga would win, but let's read it. It says it will outmaneuver it, the Mad Savvy Acolyte, and it will tip it over, leaving it vulnerable. But I don't know if it would even go for the kill, because I don't know if it would be that type of creature. And plus, that's the strategy I was talking about using for the AT-AT, so they should have brought it up over there too. Except this strategy just counts on it just like falling over because it missed a bunch of times. That sounds more like a video game boss fight logic than anything else. Next is the ARC 170 versus the B-Wing. I think I do agree that the B-Wing would win. The B-Wing is a much more advanced ship. It was designed to be one of the Rebels' best ships. And the ARC 170 was a very standard ship. And it had 3 people, so even though there's more people on it, it moves a lot slower. And it was really just an earlier version of the X-Wing. And that's why the X-Wing isn't that big or has as many people in it. This is another one where I feel like it could be very 50-50 on who could win. It's Chewbacca versus a Womp Pile. I think that if the Womp Pile gets up in a fight with Chewbacca, it could go either way. But if Chewbacca has range, he could use his bowcaster to shoot down the Womp Pile. I do agree that Chewbacca will probably win more times, but I still feel like there's a chance for the Womp Pile to win. At the time, I feel like this one would have been a little easier to answer, but I feel like it's a little more complicated. With the Aura Singh versus Leia, I feel like she probably could have easily taken Leia back before all of the new stuff in canon was revealed. Not even not counting Leia using the Force, with Aura Singh being easily defeated by being pushed off a ledge by Tobias Beckett. I feel like Leia has a good chance of winning, but I could see that one going either way, with Aura Singh maybe having a slight advantage, unless Leia uses the Force. But since it's talking about original trilogy Leia, it doesn't seem like that's likely. In Bosk versus the Droideka, I definitely agree that Bosk is going to beat a Droideka. You could also know the Droideka is a destroyer droid, but I feel like the chance of the destroyer droid or Droideka winning is pretty low compared to Bosk's chances of winning, since he's a professional bounty hunter who's probably destroyed many of these during his time in the Clone Wars. I actually don't agree with this one. It's the Snowspeeder versus the attack gunship, which is the LAAT gunship. They say the Snowspeeder would win because the gunship provides lethal ground support, but the speedy Snowspeeder will fly circles around it. But just because it's speedy doesn't mean it's going to be better. The gunship has an advantage of being able to use clone troopers in it. They could have a few clones on each side with rocket launchers to be able to shoot down the Snowspeeder. Or they could use the lasers from the ship to cut down the Snowspeeder. Or they could even use the missiles if they get lucky. The Snowspeeder has just its two cannons, which may destroy the gunship or kill any of the clones if the doors open. The Snowspeeder's grapple hook will really have no effect in this battle unless they use it on some kind of crazy maneuver to rip out the engines or something. But yeah, I don't really agree that Snowspeeder will win. I feel like the gunship has a better chance of winning. I 100% agree with this one, down to the strategy used in it, which is Lando versus the Gamorrean Guard. They say Lando wins, and I agree, because he'll be able to outthink and maneuver the Gamorrean, and he'll stay out of action range and beat his opponent with a single shot. I feel like that's almost exactly what Lando would do. This one is actually not really a what if, it's a proven fact from the movies. The Y-Wing versus Vulture Droid. Although this is talked about a Rebel Y-Wing, the Republic used Y-Wings, which had clearly destroyed Vulture Droids, because they were useful enough to be continued used in the Rebellion era. So, I agree with them saying the Y-Wing would win. Also, it's more sturdy, and the pilots can be better than the droid brain of the Vulture Droid. This is one I feel like may make some people think, but I feel like the answer is obvious. This match is the IG-100 Magna Guard versus the Imperial Royal Guard. I think it's kind of obvious how the Royal Guard would win. When you look at them, you've actually seen the Magna Guard fight more in movies and shows. They're both trained pretty well, with the Royal Guards being the best of the best that Palpatine has handpicked, and the Magna Guards being trained by General Grievous himself. But I think with all the hidden weapons that the Royal Guards have on them, they will be able to win the fight. Also, the fact that they have to protect the Emperor of the Galaxy is a much more important feat than mainly protecting the head general of the Confederacy of Independent Systems, better known as the Separatists. With this last one, I don't know if I'd fully agree with it. It's a Tuscan Raider versus a Gungan. I feel like the Tuscan Raider would win. The reason they gave the Gungan the win was because they said they could use long-range attacks using stuff like Boombas, but the Tuscan Raider also has a rifle. Also, the Tuscan Raider is going to be much more aggressive in a fight if they could get up close. But then there is the fact that Gungans were able to capture General Grievous. But I still feel like that was kind of lucky, and I think that there's going to be more often than not the Tuscan Raider would win. But there's a slight chance that a Gungan would win, especially if that Gungan hasn't been shown anything before. Again, I don't have anything against the creator of this book, or this book itself. I just thought it was interesting to go over these different scenarios, and the only one that really concerns me is both the Anakin Skywalker versus Luke Skywalker one, and the Yoda versus Darth Vader, where I feel like those were extremely judged wrong. I think there are other versions of this book, including different things like The Force Awakens, The Clone Wars, and I think tag team ones, but I don't have any of those, so I would not be making videos on them. If you feel like any of these fights should have gone the other way around, please leave that in the comments below. And if the channel Net Alliance did decide to do a reaction to this like I requested, I would like to personally thank the creator to the channel and anyone else that is watching his reaction video or this video to please consider checking out the rest of my channel and subscribing to it. Thank you for watching this episode of Legends and Theories, and may the Force be with you.